I have been terrified by the roll. It feels like the most complicated effect on the MK1 to use and understand. Not that I couldn't grasp like what it does or ways to use it. It just always felt daunting to have to really understand how it works. Well, now I have to face it. This is the very last script that I've had to write. 49 of these videos are already done. This is number 50. I hope you enjoy learning about at least what is to me the last effect on the MK1, the roll. It is available on Input Effects and Track Effects B and C. What is the roll? It is a tool that I have used since I was 13 years old. It is used on a lot of DJ decks and boards and is a very easy tool to understand. What this is doing is it's capturing a sound and repeating a certain phrase of that sound, and most importantly, constantly updating what the captured sound is. It does this when the button is on, and it stops when the button is turned off. Now, how is this different from other effects? Well, we do similar tricks with the delays, like putting one of the delays feedback, let's say a time of some value, and the feedback at 100. We can make this baseline however we want. And it gets more and more wild the more we add to it. One of the problems with the delays is, and that's whether you're using a delay, panning delay, granular delay, whatever baseline that you're trying to make, it will constantly add layers onto what you are creating. So as you talk, the delay will get more and more ridiculous as you continue to go on to the point where it just becomes overwhelming, too loud, drowning out all the other effects, compressing everything. It's not great. So I'm just going to make a bunch of random sounds into the delay, and as I do that, you'll hear them layering up. I'm going to turn the volume down because that's more ridiculous as I go on. Oh my gosh. With the roll, it's much different. So as I have it on, it is updating the sound as I speak, and it is not layering on top, and so we get a consistent noise. So now that you understand what the roll is, let's talk about the parameters. We have time, we have mode, feedback, and E-level. Time is how long the captured note is. So in this case, it is for one beat, but it is on half mode, so it is technically an eighth. We'll talk about mode in a second. You can capture the time in milliseconds as well as time-based measurements. And this works in the same way as a delay has so far. Where we stray from that is when we look at mode. Now, mode is what is controlled by the knob here for some wild reason. I think, again, because this is more of a DJ move, DJs are used to changing this, but unfortunately, because of the way it works, it doesn't reinvigorate the sound. So as I change it, the mode, it starts becoming depleted and it just eventually disappears. So it's not as great. But if you have something constantly playing, like a track, for example, and you're using this on a track effect, this might be something you could use. But basically, I think this is the roll's biggest failure. We would be using this a lot more often, and probably as often as we use delays, if we could control the E-level, for example. Or we would be using this even more than the delays if we could control like time with the knob. Anyways, gripes aside, what is mode? Well, mode is another thing that makes this a roll. It will take the captured repeated time and cut it down by the fraction shown. So you can have it at off, you can have it at a half, a quarter, an eighth, and a 16th, meaning that it will cut this time down by this fraction. Also, with off, this does not hold the sound. The feedback is what will be playing an important role with this. It's holding that role and acting, again, kind of like a delay. Speaking of feedback, let's talk about feedback. This is how many times the signal is fed back into itself. So 100 means that the feedback will infinitely loop within itself, and it'll always go on forever. And any feedback less than that will feedback it into itself less. If you're at feedback level 100 and you want to make a stop, you can either lower the feedback or just completely change the effect entirely. Or you can just use the knob to quickly turn it off. All you have to do is have it on off or whatever it's on, flick it up, and then back down, and it'll stop the sound. Yeah. Feedback is also important when you are turning the effect off, and so it's going to record. Do you hear it kind of fading out? If you want it to end just immediately when you turn it off, then just have the feedback on 0 and it'll just immediately stop the roll. And then the final parameter is the effect level. This is the volume of the repeats. So I'm going to sit back in my chair now. Oh boy, because this is like a delay, you can make notes with this as well. I have made a chart to help you figure out the notes and what sounds and what pitches the notes will make with the delay, as well as the granular delay. But this chart falls apart if you use a mode. What's weird is that it doesn't seem to follow the expected pattern. Like if I have a time of 32 milliseconds and I wanted to do half of that is 16, right? So 16 milliseconds. Okay. Which is also a B note. And a quarter is still a B note, but it's different here. One thing I did notice was that not every value sounded good together either. In other words, I was expecting that maybe because of what octaves are, all modes should be 1 octave apart because it's half, right? But nope, that's not how that works either. Then I thought maybe these would all be in the same key, sound good together. No, unfortunately, that's not how this works either. The mode does not translate or correlate with that. I know what's going on is mathematical, and the sounds that result from it are just based off of the mathematics that are happening. But I thought the math would make sense. I thought at least the math would be similar to the math of the delay and panning delay, and the chart that I would make for the roll would be similar to the charts that all the charts that I have made in the past. You know my Playgue charts. You love my Playgue charts, right? Please tell me you love my Playgue. I need validation. I will say that this isn't a failure of the effect. The roll isn't what's bad or failing. It's just the math. Just like how some delay note values happen to be between certain notes and aren't pitch perfect, the same thing is going on here. The reason the granular delay notes are spot on is because they changed the math to make it work that way. With all of this said, there is a musical pattern here that is happening. But because I am not classically trained in music theory, I don't know what that pattern is. But I do know enough that there is a pattern. So maybe I could find it if I had mapped out every single note on here. So I did. Oh my God. This is my final Playgue chart for you all. This is the complete mapping of every note the roll produces. Now you can see why this felt intimidating. If this chart makes you overwhelmed, don't worry. You are only a human being. I made a second chart to help make sense of the first chart. It's this one. Oh, no. Yeah, okay. This is not as wild as you think it is. Believe me, it looks crazy because there's a lot of notes in the roll. There's a lot more because of mode. Let me break this down. I can break this down really easily. You'll be able to understand the whole chart. what you're looking at here on this chart here, we'll start with the big one. Here is the times. You're looking at the millisecond times that the time can be. Let's look at 23 milliseconds. So 23 milliseconds, we go down on our chart, 23 milliseconds on off mode, because if you look at the top there, we have off mode, is an F note. If we make any noise into the microphone, it should be an F note. But wait, that didn't do anything. Oh, because if you look at the note, it says it has to be feedback 100 for mode off. So now, these are all F notes. Cool, just like the delay. However, because we have mode, we can go to a half mode. Well, 23, if we go down the half column, is a E note. So it goes from F to E. E, E, E. So now those are all E notes. Cool. This is starting to make sense. Now, if we go 23 milliseconds for a quarter note, unfortunately, it is in between a C sharp and a D, so it doesn't really make a note. But an eighth does. We go all the way across, that makes a B note. B, B. Cool. Is all of this making sense now? Now you can read literally the entire chart. That's all you need to know. Cool. Let's move on to the next chart. All the same information, all of the same data, except it is broken down by note rather than time. So all I did was just swap the two columns. So now on the far left, I have note instead of time, and then I put the times in which make that note. So if you need to do a search for the note instead, you can do that with this chart right here. Now there's a couple of quirks with the roll that I want to talk about. Notice that the note or sound isn't changed when you go to higher modes. Like mode 1/2 needs 2 time changes in order for it to actually change to a different sound. Quarter needs 4, eighth needs 8, so on. There are a few patterns that show up too, which makes sense since this is rooted in physics and math ultimately. So one thing to note with the second chart here is that these are ranges that we're given. So in mode off, it's just those values. In modes half and above, it is the range of what is in front of that number. So in the half mode column, see if we have an A sharp, the very last number is 66. That means 66 and 67, that's 2 numbers, are the same note. They are A sharp. If we go to, say, an eighth, and we note that 93 works, well, that also means 94 through 100 are the same exact note with no change, because 93 through 100 is a range of 8, because 1/8. The mode is 1/8, so it's no change. And I can demonstrate this with a 23. So 22 is the starting note. So 23 and 22 are not going to make any difference with a half note, because they are the same. But if I go into 21 and 20, that is now a new note. New note. You can see that it has a range of 2, but if I have it on fourth, it has a range of 4. 4. And eighth has a range of 8, 16 has a range of 16. 16. Does that make sense? Okay. Now that we are finally done talking about the basics, let's learn some tricks, yeah? So we have a roll on any time or any note that you want to have. You have it on a mode of whatever time you want to have. We'll have it on an eighth. And then your feedback and your E level doesn't matter. Depends on how much effect you want to have. And then your filter, you're going to have below the roll. It has to be below the roll. And you're going to have it on low pass filter. You're going to have whatever rate that you want to have, depending on the track. Your depth is going to be 80. Your resonance is going to be 50. Just keep that as is. And your cutoff is also going to be 50. and then your step rate is going to be off. So what you're going to do is you're going to do a kick into the microphone, and that is going to start the roll. Or you can really make any sound in here, but kick works. And you'll notice once we turn the filter on, it'll start wobbling it. But the next thing you want to have set up is a Track Effects a vinyl flick on 75. This will bring it down to a nice place. So let's try this out. This is a trick that was taught to me by author Henry. Another trick that you can use with the roll is you can use it to make rapid sounds or drums. If you just have a roll, you don't have to constantly like make a kick on the right part. You can have it at a half note and have it at a half mode, and that will put it at every beat. And then once you turn the roll off, that will stop it. It's a really good way to make a cool build-up as well. Headshot. 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 We can also use the roll to fill space. So if we have, let's say, a track with a lot of space in between each part, we can use a roll to fill that space. Notice that with the roll, it's very easy to turn on and off too. With the delay, you have to change the volume of it, and it will have to fade that way. So there are some advantages of this effect that gives you over delays besides just it constantly updating the captured sound. I will show you my favorite trick that you can do with the roll, and that is muting everything, and the roll sound will continue on when things are muted. And then when you move things back up or fader back up or play the track again, then that sound will then continue to be updated. Then you can mute it and you'll have a brand new sound that is now being repeated. And I use this a lot in Playground. Playground! So there are some limitations with the roll as well. The roll sound will get compressed often, especially when multiple tracks are affected. Like with GIF, for example, we have this going off, but if I add the hi-hats to it, you'll hear it get compressed because it doesn't copy everything perfectly, but you'll hear what I mean. So it prioritizes some tracks over the others when it comes to like compression. And like I showed you before, switching modes will cause the sound to decay really, really quickly, similar to a granular delay. Switching times, aka notes, is pretty sustainable though. So if you want to use this to make notes to your songs, use the first chart to see what mode is the most convenient to stay in for the notes that you are trying to hit. And that is it. That is the roll. Whew. Wow. This is not the last tutorial that I have recorded, but this is the last tutorial that I wrote the script on. And man, this is pretty awesome. It's been a year in the making, and I'm down to my last, I think it's 11 videos that I need to make left out of 50. So if you like what you've been seeing so far, feel free to subscribe. I have 50 of these videos that are either coming out or have already been out. Feel free to check out any of those and see what fun new tricks that you can learn. But with all that said, let's look at a track that utilizes a roll throughout.
When it drops, you know you gotta face it. When it drops, you know you gotta face it. When it drops, you know you gotta face it. When it drops, you know you gotta face it. When it drops, you know you gotta face it. When it drops, you know you gotta face it. When it drops, you know you gotta face it. When it drops, you know you gotta face it. When it drops, you know you gotta face it. When it drops, you know you gotta face it. When it drops, you know you gotta face it. When it drops, you know you gotta face it. When it drops, you know you gotta face it. When it drops, you know you gotta face it. When it drops, you know you gotta face it. When it drops, you know you gotta face it. When it drops, you know you gotta face it. When it drops, you know you gotta face it. When it drops, you know you gotta face it. When it drops, you know you gotta face it. When it drops, you know you gotta face it. When it drops, you know you gotta face it. When it drops, you know you gotta face it. When it drops, you know you gotta face it. When it drops, you know you gotta face it. When it drops, you know you gotta face it. When it drops, you know you gotta face it. When it drops, you know you gotta face it. When it drops, you know you gotta face it. When it drops, you know you gotta face it. Drops, you know you gotta face it. When it drops, you know you gotta face it.
We'll see if that turned out.